Well, it's finally here, the anime adaptation of Pluto, which of course features the Masao Maruyama himself as the producer. Now here's a quick history lesson. If the name Masao Maruyama sounds familiar, it's because he is one of the co-founders of Studio Madhouse and the founder of Studio Mappa. In fact, the M in Mappa stands for Maruyama. He left Madhouse back in June 2011 because everybody left Madhouse around that time, and he went on to establish a new studio named Mappa. You may have heard of that name. They made a ballet anime and some other stuff that's not important. By the way, MAPPA is an acronym for Maruyama Animation Produce Project Association, which is ironic because Maruyama left MAPPA back in 2016, probably because he felt like the studio was prioritizing profit over creativity. Much like early Madhouse, MAPPA was supposed to be home to passion projects, but the whole Yuri on Ice production fiasco seemed to suggest otherwise. He handed over his presidency to Manabu Otsuka and went on to create a third studio, Studio M2. And that brings us to Pluto, which is being produced by the aforementioned Studio M2. Pluto has been in production for forever at this point. In fact, most people assume that this show was secretly cancelled. However, as you can see, it's very real. Some of you may be worried about the role of Netflix in this adaptation. Well, here's a quote from Maruyama himself. This is from a Q&A all the way back in 2012. When asked about a potential Pluto adaptation, Maruyama said, quote, "That's actually one of those shows I'd really like to animate right now, but the problem is that the original work is very long. It'd come to about 8-hour-long episodes, which means we'd need a lot of money. Where will this money come from? Give me money." Well, here's the money. I don't think Netflix will have any creative input. Alright, that's enough rambling. Let's talk about the actual trailer, which opens up with this gorgeous camera movement throughout the city. Now, based on the movement alone, you'd think that the background is CGI, but at the same time, it really retains that manipulated 2D assets look. I had to watch this cut several times, and even now I'm not completely sure. The clouds are definitely moving 2D assets, but the background does appear to be 3D with some very unique texture work. One aspect worth noting is the color grading throughout this entire thing, which some people have a problem with. Personally, I like it. It's really vibrant and the lighting complements that well. The tunnel scene feels futuristic with the blue lighting and the actual background movement. The shading work throughout this entire sequence was really good. I like the color grading. I haven't read the manga, so I can't really comment much. You can find some brilliant backgrounds throughout this trailer. The field of flowers here are pretty much entirely CGI, so are the windmills I believe, but it works. The CGI blends in quite well, largely due to the compositing. The flowers do look slightly out of place, but it's nothing too significant. The actual machinery seems to be CGI as well, which of course is to be expected, partially because it's way too complicated to draw and partially because Masao Maruyama, despite being an old school producer, never had a problem with CGI. And just to get this out of the way, the art direction throughout this entire trailer was absolutely top notch. The worn down look is perfectly handled during the scenes that take place inside the windmill building thing. The composite effects on the robotic jet things look very good as well, with a strong flair to it. Also, some really clever background movement can be seen. Note the unnecessarily good looking liquid animation here. And this brings us to the small action scene, and this seems to have upset some people, mostly because every frame isn't hand drawn. Random character 1 here unleashes a horde of CGI flies which don't exactly blend in too well with everything else. I've noticed this in a lot of shows. The smaller the CGI object is, the less it blends in. The actual fight features a ton of digital effects and some look better than others. The interdimensional flies hitting the shield looks solid to me. The sparks, the electricity, the ripples, all of that is well placed and looks good. It's the stuff that follows. How do I put it? It looks like a mess. There are way too many digital effects thrown in to the point where nothing looks like anything. Remember that one scene from Demon Slayer that everybody likes to hate on? Yeah, it's the same issue here. Most of the fight is animated by Shinya Ohira, and even his work got somewhat butchered. Firstly, it didn't have his signature line work. Secondly, his incredible effects animation was completely undermined thanks to the copious amounts of digital effects and filters on it. Again, it's hard to tell what's happening. Also, undermining Shinya Ohira's effects animation should be a punishable offense. It just looks too busy. It's really hard to follow. The water, the jets on this guy's foot, the attacks coming his way, all of these elements have a ton of effects, and naturally that many digital and hand-drawn effects combined looks like a mess of colors. Also, did I mention that the CGI flies look out of place? Because the CGI flies look out of place. The extremely lifelike body language and running animation that follows is probably the most impressive part of this entire trailer, visually speaking. This part is still most likely animated by Shinya Ohira, manga who will animate a lot according to people who know more than I do. The running animation has some light motion blur thrown in. It reminded me of Kids on the Slope for a second. Some good lighting and camera work can be seen near the end. This show was being worked on for a long time. Naturally, the hand-drawn animation will look top-notch. I just hope that this won't end up being a Jujutsu Kaisen situation where the amazing animation gets kneecapped by subpar compositing. The general composite work for the non-action scenes did look solid, so I'm not too worried, but I hope that the rest of the action looks more cohesive than this one. I don't know, it's still way too early to judge. One thing I will say, this trailer was edited in a weird way, with static dialogue scenes being shown without any audible dialogue. All in all, I'm definitely interested. Given the circumstances and the names involved, I can assure you that this won't be an average good adaptation. It's going to try something different, something new, something ambitious. And I hope it does so well. I haven't read Pluto, but I've heard some really good things about it. I hope the anime does the source, as well as my animation nerd self, justice. And that just about does it. Are you excited for Pluto? Comment down below. Like the video if you liked the video. It's self-explanatory, come on now. And hit the subscribe button. Do it. Ever wondered what each anime staff member does? Watch the video on screen to find out. And until next time.